5 seconds. Michael. I I would not have thought that we see us again this soon. But can you please help a non-native English speaker and a non-journalist explain what have I seen in this MoFi video? Please explain that to me.
First of all, I'd like to say that I learned more about auto insurance and how to take care of bad teeth than I learned about what's really going on at Mobile Fidelity. That's the first thing.
Okay.
The problem is, and this is nothing against Mike Esposito. He's not a journalist. He's not a skilled interviewer. He doesn't know what he's doing. And they rolled all over him. And he's a fanboy. And so, for example, he did ask a good question. So, for example, Santana Abraxas, one of your most famous one-steps, how was that produced? They never answered the question. They never did. And then he asked them the same question about the Miles Davis. I wanted to know the Miles Davis catalog. Was that from analog or digital? Never answered. He never said to them, so what you're saying is when it comes to Sony Columbia products, you never use master tape. You never get master tapes in Sebastopol to cut from. You are cutting from either a copy of the master or a DXD file. Is that true? Yet you say original master recording at the top. Is that honest? He never asked any probing questions, not a single one. And those three guys rolled all over him. And in the end, we still don't know what is what is sourced from what. We all understand that some products have to be done digitally and they're better done digitally. We know if you get in a catalog on 12 separate reels, because at the end of the analog era, there was this issue where they weren't releasing it on tape. So they were cutting on tape and then sending individual reels to be mastered digitally. So when they did the Pretenders, they got in 12 individual files. And the only way to deal with that is to digitize them and produce a cutting master. I get that. But they obfuscated all over the place. They never got. And then they said, well, we'll do better in the future. But he never. Yeah, good.
I'm stunned right now because you are so calm. I really am. I watch this as a consumer, and what I say now is, please believe that to me, not at all against Mike Esposito.
Right.
He did the best he could.
Yes.
He went there on his own cost, which he did that. He spent so much time and effort.
Yeah.
And those people sit there, and I thought I'm watching a barbecue party. Not criticizing Mike, I'm criticizing MoFi. They were in a fantastic mood, and now it's so funny. And we are the coolest. We are still the coolest. No apologies.
Can you hold on? Someone's at my door, and I have to get to it. Can you let me do that? I have to do this. I'm sorry.
Okay. I try. I try to.
Sorry, folks. I have.
Okay, no, but it's live. That's live. No problem. Yeah, and that was something I did not understand, and as someone who has to deal with crises like that for other companies, I was really astonished how easy those MoFi guys were, and I didn't feel any remorse or any regret. I didn't get the feeling that they feel we really have something bad. We have misled our customers, and we are totally sorry, and we try to make up for it. I didn't get that feeling that they said, okay, sorry guys, we know we effed up, but here we go. Here's the transparency. Here are the titles. Digital, non-digital, because.
Right.
That's what I would have wished for.
Because Mike didn't go. He's not an interviewer. He's a record store owner.
Yeah, which is a great thing.
And fine. And he went in there trying to be an interviewer. And this is a tough subject. This is a topic that has to be covered in a tough way. And Mobile Fidelity and Jim Davis should have had at least one journalist in there to do the questioning from a journalistic point of view, like 60 Minutes does. You go in, this is a serious subject we all care about, and you go in and you ask probing questions, and you don't let the interviewee get off the hook and change the subject. We never learned how the Santana was done. We never learned the Miles. He should have gone in and said, here's a list of all your titles. And he should have gone, before he went there, he should have sent them an email. So here's a list of all your titles, which are analog, which are digital. And reading the comments on his site are really interesting. There are some people that get it. They lied to me for 20 years and they should have told the truth. And then there are the other ones saying, see, it proves you can't hear the difference between analog and digital. I've been saying that, and Fremer lied. No.
Yeah, but we have learned some things. Please make some clearance. What did we learn? What we didn't know before the interview?
Yes, what we learned, first of all, was something that I knew all along, and I covered for MoFi. I mentioned it once in a review, but I didn't want to keep pounding it home. They cannot get Columbia BMG, Sony BMG master tapes sent to Sebastopol. They cannot. There were years when Analog Productions could get the master tapes to Sterling Sound because Sony BMG had a deal with them, and they would send master tapes. So for years, when Analog Productions released things from Sony BMG titles, like the Stevie Ray Vaughan box, all from analog tapes. And when people say, well, you can't hear the difference, I tell you, if you play the Analog Productions Couldn't Stand the Weather, cut from a tape, versus the one step cut from a DSD master at 45 RPM, with Neotech vinyl, with a blessing from a rabbi, a priest, and an imam, whatever they want to do to it, you can hear the difference. There's a softness to it. There's this lack of, something's not. I didn't review it because I didn't want to get into that. I just didn't want to get into that whole thing. I just let it go. And I didn't review most of their one steps. I reviewed a couple. The Monk Dream sounds great, however it was done, but I didn't hear it done from tape to compare it, so I don't know. But it was great. The Miles stuff they did sounds great compared to the originals, because Columbia had a very bad period of time in that era, and their mastering chain, something went wrong. Everybody who listens to those records know what happened, and theirs came out much better, and I'm happy they did them. It only proves that a better mastering chain can produce better results. This was so, Mike Esposito fumbled the ball, but I don't blame him, because he's not a professional. He should have known better than to go in there and do this on his own. He should have said,
there is one who knows better, and that's MoFi, and that's why they take that route.
Yes.
I think when they say, come on, we invite Mike Esposito, we invite Fremer, and name another journalist, everybody would have been fine. I don't think that there would be one of you saying, no, if he comes, I don't think so.
Right. I don't think Mike Esposito would not have said, I won't come if Fremer comes. I don't think he would have said that, and I certainly wouldn't say no. But you know what? I could name a half a dozen really good audio journalists in the Bay Area, one of whom would have been happy to go up there and keep the questions on track and ask tough, hard questions. They rolled all over this guy completely, and yet they still look sheepish. They really did not look comfortable.
In my opinion, totally. Totally. I was under the impression, and again, not Mike's fault. Mike did great. Please don't jump on us on that point. But the whole atmosphere was totally inappropriate, in my opinion, when you consider the size of the things that also Mike put out. I mean, it was really something with this breaking news. And now all of a sudden, okay, they sound fine. What are your future plans? What are your favorite one-step titles? What?
Yeah, totally off topic, because he sells records, and he's going into the den of record producers, and he could have, even as a record seller, he could have been totally probing and really gotten them to answer the questions, but he didn't. And you're right, he's not equipped to do it. and he should have known that he really wasn't equipped to do it, or he should have prepped with a journalist and said, what tough questions should I ask him? What should I watch out for? What should I look for? And any journalist would have said, watch out when they change the subject. Watch out when you ask a tough question and they refuse to answer the question and change the subject. And they did that to him over and over and over again.
But Michael, why don't you stay on the topic? Why don't you just stay there and say, no, my questions aren't answered. Here are my questions. Please answer them.
You mean me?
Yeah, why not? Who else?
Well, in what venue? They're not gonna. I asked to go there, but they said no.
Really? Are they that strict now? And they don't talk with you about, give me your catalog, tell me exactly which titles
I can try it. Who do I talk to? Do I talk to the person that told me that they're cutting Thriller from an tape copy, which they all? I bet you. Well, I don't know if they. We don't know if they really are. They might be, and then digitizing it to cut the lacquers, or they may have just gotten a DXD file to begin with. None of these questions were answered. We don't
exactly, and that's my thinking. I don't think, although I totally get it, a lot of people are now tired of this topic. I get that. Me too, in a way. But there are still a lot of questions to answer.
Yeah.
And I think it's not the time to let them off the hook in a way.
No, it isn't. I'm going to do a video.
I haven't heard an apology, but maybe, as I said, I'm not a native speaker, but I haven't heard any. I haven't heard a statement like, yeah, we did wrong, dear customers. We are very, very sorry, and we promise to do better in the future. I haven't heard that in this.
No, they didn't apologize, and they kind of sheepishly said it was left on the table. I'm reading from their one-step thing, and it says, Mobile Fidelity Sound Labs engineers begin with the original master tapes and meticulously cut a set of lacquers. That, yeah, that's true, because we get the master tape in New York and we make a digital copy of it, or we copy the tape to tape, and then we bring it home to Sebastopol and we use that to cut. So we're cutting from. That's not.
But Michael, if you see it that way, every release is from the master tape.
That's right.
Everything is from the master tape then.
Well, or a second generation tape if the master tape is missing, and then that becomes the master tape.
Yes.
Yes, and that's what they do, and I understand that too. Intervention Records is 100% honest about all of what they've done. Dane Bentner is 100% honest, because a lot of those tapes were lost in the fire, and they got copies from around the world, and a lot of them are 30 IPS half-inch tapes. I mean, they're good copies. And so, his Gene Clark White Light record sounds better than the original pressing by a lot. And it was cut from a tape, a copy of the master. I'm fine with that. And he's honest about what he's using.
That's the point. Exactly.
Yeah, and these guys were not honest for how many years? Years.
Seven.
At least
7.
And before that, they were saying they were cutting from master tapes when they were using copies that they got at Sony. And man, the whole thing. That's why I'm just sorry, Michael. It just hurts me to see people say that I lied.
Yeah. And what hurts me, I get that point. This is a terrible thing to say, but you're a public figure, and that shit happens.
Yeah.
But what's also very hurtful, in my opinion, is that now when people say I love when it comes from the analog tapes, because then I feel assured that it can't get any better. Right. That may be right, that may be wrong. And this is not a fight about analog or digital releases.
Exactly.
It's not.
It's not. And they're making it that. That's how they change the subject and make it a bright, shiny object. Oh, analog versus. See, these can sound good. These audiophiles are crazy. They're purists. It sounds great, doesn't it? Yeah.
Sometimes it sounds great. No doubt about it. But that's not the frigging topic.
Exactly. They're so easily fooled.
Yeah, and I also have no idea what are as I said, I don't understand everything immediately as a non-native speaker.
Let me say one more thing as a native speaker. And when I posted that I have proof that they had an analog master tape at their studio and cut lacquers from it. That was true. It was a Warner Brothers title, and so now I'll tell you what the real truth, total truth. I was covering for Mobile Fidelity again because I heard this from someone who, what happened is they got the master tape of Love Over Gold, they cut lacquers from the master tape and made a DXD copy at the same time for their SACD review, sent the tapes back, and what happened? They found that there was a problem with their recorder, with their playback deck, and it was producing a lot of wow on the lacquer and on their DXD file. So what they could have done was ask for the tape back, but they didn't. What they did was they went to the guy, and I'm not sure I'm not supposed to say who it is, but he fixed it. He fixed the wow and sent them back all right, I'll say it. I'm tired of holding back. They called on Jamie Hayworth at Plangent.
Plangent, yeah.
Jamie got the file and fixed it. And so Love Over Gold was released on vinyl from the master tape, but from a digital file. And guess what? It was Plangent processed, and it's good.
The Plangent is great all along.
If you're cutting from a digital file and you're charging $125 for a record, and you're not telling people that it's digital, the least you could do is give it to Jamie Hayworth, let him do the Plangent process, which removes all of the problems we know exist with analog tape and gives you the best possible digital file. But they didn't do that.
Right. There is a lot of stuff MoFi didn't do.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm still stunned in a way, really. I'm still stunned.
Yeah.
And again, they didn't get the disappointment a lot of their customers are feeling right now. Of course, probably the majority don't feel that way. They say that doesn't sound different now. They sound great. Yeah, let's go on. But
they don't know any better. They've never compared. Of course, it sounds good. They've got a good mastering chain. The guys know what they're doing, and they can take a digital file and make it sound good. And I've never been against using a digital file to make a record when it starts as a digital file. You know, I can play you a half a dozen great sounding records cut from a digital file that actually sound better than the digital file. And people say, well, that can't be. That's a distortion you were hearing. Yeah, well, you know what? Every recording is a distortion. Recordings are distortions. Microphones are distortions. If putting it through a cutting system makes the digital file sound more enjoyable, that's all that matters.
Thick vinyl. Why do you say it that way? Of course, Michael Fremer recommended MoFi. I recommended MoFi. Why? Because they sound great. We do not, at least me, and I don't understand Michael does that. We do not say now they don't sound good.
But wait, Michael, I've said some of them don't sound so great.
Yeah, I know. Me too. When I compared the Muddy Waters folk singer with the AP, I said the analog production sounds better. I like it much more.
Right. So really, thick vinyl has to take a step backwards. I have been recommending some MoFis because they sound good. And like I just said to you, Michael, when the originals were not good sounding, like the whole classic quintet series on Columbia, those were not good sounding records for some reason. And MoFi did really great job cutting them from a digital file, and they sound better than the originals. That doesn't change anything that I've said. It doesn't. I didn't bother comparing the Couldn't Stand the Weather, the two versions, which I think thick vinyl ought to get a hold of an AP if he has the one from MoFi, and compare the two, and you'll hear what we're talking about. It's not nearly as good, and it's a one step, and it's $125, and it's in this box, and it's on Neotech, super vinyl.
And you can watch the video. My videos are still there. I said it. Or low noise Jason's skills, of course. Yeah, I get your point. But overhype.
That's not a true comment either. I don't understand.
Me neither. I don't totally agree with that because they do special things, and I hope they keep on doing this.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah. But the point here is lack of transparency, misleading the customers.
Yeah,
that's the point.
That's the real point. That's the real point. And unfortunately, that video did not solidify the situation. He did not. He didn't really do the job. But I don't expect him to do the job. He's not a journalist. And what kills me is all these people on his site go, the so-called journalists, the so-called journalists. How about the real journalists telling the real story? So, you know,
but there's still this, Michael. I agree I agree to a certain degree, and I say the story isn't told yet.
It's not. It's not.
It's not. Yeah. And now we need journalists to tell this story somehow.
Yeah.
Find a deep throat, or how is it called?
There was one. That's how this whole thing broke.
I know.
A deep throat. I wonder. We don't know who it was.
We don't know who We don't know who. But that's another story.
Yeah, we know who the real deep throat was in Watergate. We know who that was. But just as a funny aside, you know, Carl Bernstein, who was, you know, one of the reporters on Watergate. So when I first met Carl, he was a total digital guy. Total digital guy, and he came over and he brought his CDs. Every one of his CDs was marked for phase, you know.
Okay.
So, and he when he put it on my player, I'd have to adjust the CD player in phase, you know, in phase or out of phase, polarity, not phase, but it's called polarity. And then he said, you know, I have some records when I was a kid. I really want to digitize them. I want to have them. I said, fine, I'll come over. I'll get the records. So I got the records. He had some really good 50s era rock records, and I digitized them. And then I got him a Riga turntable. I said, listen, I'm going to bring you a turntable here. Just have it for a couple of months and play some records. He's a crazy analog guy. He's got a huge collection of records. He's a vinyl guy all the way. It's so hilarious.
Yeah. We are a growing community. Yeah.
Yeah.
But do you know if he has any MoFis? Maybe we can put him on this case.
Mostly classical records. Mostly classical records.
Okay.
But you know, this whole thing is just
it's sad.
It's very sad. And then, you know, that video was what I expected it to be. And I don't blame him. He's not a journalist. He got rolled over so easily and so quickly and couldn't stay on topic and couldn't. Leslie Stahl should have been sent there, you know, from 60 Minutes. She would have done a really good job. But
yeah,
whatever.
But those guys, Michael, those guys get probably millions to doing this.
They do. I would have done it for nothing. What was really funny on our video the other day when I said I would have paid my way up there, and then, you know, Mike Esposito came back. I paid. I didn't say you didn't. I didn't say you didn't.
Those are the points nobody said. I totally trust him that he paid. But
well,
you know what? I don't think that he needs to, in a way. Again, maybe I'm coming from another position. Why did he pay for that? MoFi should pay for that. He helped them out.
They should have paid for it because he was not there as a journalist. He was there as a website guy and a record store owner who wanted to get some questions answered. And good for him for doing that. But they should have paid his way because they rolled him over pretty good. He started with a good question. How did you do that, Santana? I went, yes, this is going to go really great. And that lasted about 3 seconds, and then they changed. They were very skilled at it. Sean was very, very skilled at it. And, you know, maybe it's not even their fault. Maybe they weren't coached. Maybe they didn't have a powwow beforehand and say, let's obfuscate. Maybe it's just that they were just sitting there and letting it happen. And nobody kept it on subject at all for the whole time. It was not on subject.
You know, it was a brilliant video. I would love this video. When he's just said, or when the situation would have been another situation, you know, I go to MoFi and I make an interview with them and talk to the guys.
Yep.
Then it would be a fantastic, interesting video.
Yes.
But not with this topic at hand.
Precisely. Let's see your mastering chain, and he didn't even get into the details of any of that stuff. I mean, he did. What kind of tape recorder? What kind of limiter? What do you have here? What's your board? He didn't get into that either. He got into really pretty much nothing. Nothing. Great interview.
But sorry, but I have to agree to this. Yes, you are right in my personal opinion. But that's what MoFi wanted.
That's right. Ultimately,
I'm quite sure.
That's why they invited him.
That video was exactly what MoFi hoped happens.
Yeah.
I'm 100% sure.
And I sympathize with Mike from the one knucklehead who said, "Boy, you're an audio guy and a record store owner, and the sound of your video is really bad." Well, he's doing an interview on a camcorder, and cut him a break.
Yeah, the picture quality was brilliant. The lighting was incredible good. So that on that
it was
part,
fine. The sound was fine. It was fine.
Exactly. You could understand any word.
The
Okay,
so
Michael, I think we will see if some in the gallery have some seriously not insulting questions, and we are very pleased, or you are probably pleased to answer them. If so, shoot.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Oh no, wait. This one. It's critical, but it's.
You had 15. Okay. I have asked the question. First of all, I remember when have you been reading me for how long? I've been writing for 30 years now. Okay. When the Beatles box came out, I wasn't writing, but I did hear the rumors that it was actually cut from an F1 digital tape. I heard that. Okay, that's another subject. I've asked these questions, but you know what? I take people at face value. If Kevin Gray releases a record and he says it's AAA, I don't say, Kevin, are you sure it's AAA? Can I trust you? If Mobile Fidelity says we have an ultra analog mastering chain, I take their word. I did know about 8 years ago that they did not get master tapes from Sony BMG to Sebastopol, and I wrote that on Analog Planet. You can find that review, but I didn't pound them every single review. I wrote it and I said it, and that's the truth. So what is it I didn't? I'm curious what question I didn't ask.
No, I think you answered this question. It was kind of a statement, but with a question, great connection.
Will this be the end of MoFi? No, I think there's a lot of people that they're going to dig in and say, see, it proves, I don't care if it's digital or analog, they're doing a great job. And that's fine. That's fine. If you think those things sound good, some of them do and some of them don't. But until you hear a modern record made from the tape, AAA, and then done the way they're doing it from DXD, you really don't know what you're talking about. And so I'm doing a show in California, in Seattle in a week. I'm going to bring the MoFi Couldn't Stand the Weather, and I'm going to bring Chad's Couldn't Stand the Weather. So Chad's was cut AAA from the tape by Ryan Smith on a very good chain, and the MoFi was cut from a DXD master, from a copy either from the tape, original tape transferred at Sony or a copy sent to them. They were completely unclear about those things. And I'll play it for people and say, I won't tell them which is which. I'll say, which do you like? What do you hear? Exactly. And then you're going to.
I want to answer this statement. They can. They can. And they do. And they do it as long as we buy them for $125. And if they charge $145 and we buy them, they will do it. It's up to us.
Yeah. They will get, if Warner Music controls the Eagles catalog, then they got the master tapes sent to them in Sebastopol. Most likely. Odds are good. So then the question is, and, I wish Mike had asked them that, the Eagles catalog, did you get the masters sent to you from Warner Music? And they did. I know that they would have, because Warner Music will send the masters. Did you cut that from tape, or did you cut that from a digital file? I'm just curious. Didn't ask that either.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Chad doesn't like the one-step. Apparently, Kevin Gray and a few other people, people at RTI Pressing, have genuine reasons why they don't think one-step produces better results. And I have to talk to both Kevin and the people at RTI to find out what their reasoning is. I don't know that yet. Yeah, that's a whole nother story.
I have a question for you, Michael, that just comes to my mind. Is it true that the regular 40th anniversary edition is done by Bernie Grundman?
Yeah, well, that's another story. So yeah, they originally.
It gets interesting.
Yeah, now he's doing, as far as I know, Bernie is doing the CD version from the original tape, and he's also doing a 2 LP set later on, one of which will be the actual album, and one of which will be, I think, outtakes. And whether the original,
would that one be from the original master tapes from Bernie Grundman? Because
yes,
this will be so interesting, and I have. Yeah, we will see how the comparison will go between the one step and the all analog Bernie Grundman. Bernie Grundman is a genius.
Well, we don't know if the.
Well, of course we don't.
And we don't know if the record that's being released is going to be from the analog source.
Okay, we don't know that.
Yeah, we don't know. We can ask Bernie and maybe find out. But you know what'll be interesting is hearing the CD that Bernie masters versus the SACD that they master. If they do it, we don't even know if they're doing an SACD, because what was announced was they're doing a one-step process. So can I go over that for a second to tell people who may not have seen that on my former Endeavor website? In May, I was sent a message from someone at MoFi. It was just a link to a press release that was put online that was prepared by the estate of Michael Jackson. And some of you knew that I was involved in a
Siri, Musik aus. Siri, stop Musik. That's you talk, I stop the music.
My wife always says to me. So I click on the link and it says Bernie Grundman to master 40th anniversary reissue of Thriller from the master tape. That's what the headline was. And then about 5 paragraphs down, it says, and Mobile Fidelity will be doing one of 40,000 copies of their one-step vinyl process. And, you know, someone just said, why don't you ask the questions? So the first question was 40,000. Well, that's going to mean at least 40 passes of the tape. Are they going to be cutting from the master tape? I don't think Sony would let them do that. But since I already know that Sony didn't send them master tapes, I said, so this means either Bernie is going to cut the lacquers for them, which will be a new first, or Bernie will make a copy of the tape and send it to them, or you know, those are the choices, or they'll be cutting from a DXD, from a digital file. And I made those 4 choices. I put that in my press release announcement, because my readers get on my case whenever I put up a press release from a record company that says mastered from the original analog tapes, and it turns out that means it was digitized first. Okay, so and I don't like being spanked by my readers. Immediately after that went up, somebody from Mobile Fidelity sent me an email, said, take that down, take that down. It's not true. We're going to be cutting from a copy of the master tape. But
okay. So the question, the answer, if I may get briefly into it, Mike, did MoFi lie to you? Is yes.
Yes. So they said it's going to be cut from a copy of the master tape. They didn't tell me that it was going to be an interim DXD file made first. But they didn't let me post that. They said, please don't. And I try to accede to the wishes of record companies when there's a delay. I don't lie for them. But he said, please wait. We're going to make this big announcement following the Munich show. So I took them at their word that right after the Munich show, they were going to make a big announcement, which I felt was going to be how this record was going to be produced. In the meantime, all of the rumors flew. And that's what produced this entire episode, because they lied. And so then about 2 hours later, I get an email, I get a comment on my website. Fremer, time for you to pack it in. You're hallucinating. I went to that website where that press release is, and Bernie Grundman is not even mentioned. So what happened is they went back. You're the one that's smoking, and I'm the one that's choking.
But I also have every time a glass of water.
Okay, well, I don't make it use it. Anyway, so
I can grab it, give it to you.
I go back to the website, and sure enough, Bernie Grundman's name is scrubbed from it. They changed the whole thing. Why? Because of what I originally posted. And then again, I take crap from readers because I hallucinated that. So I did not lie. I expected after Munich they would make the announcement, and I gave them the courtesy of waiting. And yeah, they lied to me. They lied to me the same way they lied to everybody who's watching this. When they said, yeah, we're using, you know, it's being sourced from a copy of the master tape. Well, that was the first time they said it was from a copy. whereas all of the stuff was being from a copy of the master tape. So they lied to you for a lot longer. And I did expose that in a review a couple of years ago. And I'm not going to beat them over the head every time I review one of their things.
But correct me if I'm wrong. Away from that lying and misleading, I would prefer a DSD file over a copy from the master. Just a gut feeling. Do you agree, or is it a case-to-case matter?
It's case-to-case, because the guy that did the Jamie Hayworth, who loves his plangent process and you know thinks it's better than tape because it fixes what's wrong on tape. He said that a properly done one-to-one transfer, you should not be able to distinguish from the original. It can be that, if it's done right, it can be that good. And all I can say is, if you listen to the Intervention one off the masters, most of those sound absolutely fantastic. And if the Thelonious Monk's Dream was done from a DXD file, it sounds great. I love that. That's the best version. If What's Going On by Marvin Gaye was cut from a DXD file,
great.
I have not compared it to Kevin Gray's all analog cut, and that you have, right?
I did.
And
I like the Kevin Gray a bit more. And I said it on the video.
And did you know why?
No.
No.
I don't say, I don't feel able to say this is digital, this is analog. No, I wouldn't say that.
DXD makes it much harder. DXD is a fair, is about as transparent as digital gets. But when people say, see, it proves digital is perfect, digital is not digital. Digital is 16-bit 44K. That sounds really bad. Then there's 20-bit super bit mapping. Digital is not digital. And people say digital is perfect. Analog to digital converters all sound different. They're all different. So
okay, I tell you, when I hear MP3, I can tell you that's digital.
Yes.
That's not what I meant. But nowadays, I think over the years, digital has improved immensely.
Of course it has. And no one says otherwise, but the people that come on and say, see, I told you it was perfect. You spent 30 years fighting this.
2008, I told you it's perfect.
Yeah, you spent 30 years fighting this. And a lot of these youngsters were not around when CD first came out and I was fighting this fight. You have no idea what went on. And it was not easy.
I've heard stories. It wasn't that funny, wasn't it?
No, I went to Sony for a demonstration. This is before SACD even came out. SACD in DSD existed on a breadboard circuit board, like just a circuit board. And David Kawakami, who was Sony's SACD DSD point man, had invited me and a bunch of journalists from some of the other audio magazines who thought that 16-bit 44K CDs was perfect. And we went into this room. They took us into the studio and they had a trio playing live. And we could hear the trio playing live. And then they brought us into a room where they had a speaker system, a pair of Wilson speakers there, and they played us a live conversion to 16-bit 44K compared to the live mic feed. We can go back and forth. First of all, the live mic feed sounded nothing like the studio live. The original microphone thing is a total distortion of reality. Keep that in mind, okay? So the live mic feed sounded much worse than the live drumming and guitar and whatever the instrumentation was. Then they played the 16-bit 44K conversion, and the soundstage shrank, and the timbral balance collapsed, and the harmonic resolution was removed. Then they played the 20-bit super bit mapping version, and it was somewhat better. It was somewhat more open. Then they played the DSD breadboard, and it was much better, much more air on top, much more analog-like. Then they played the tape version. And the tape version, I know it, if you measure it, it's not as good in a lot of ways. But whatever distortion the tape added made the tape version sound more like the live playback in the studio. I swear to God, it was like, oh, that sounds more like that. But the guys from the other audio magazines thought that the 16-bit 44K sounded perfect. So, what can I tell you?
This is a great question, you know that? Because I can imagine that a lot of people cannot really answer that question.
What is DSD?
Yeah, explain that. I think that's a great question.
Okay, So let's just take PC and pulse code modulation, 16-bit 44K. So if you understand what that is, which means let's look at it like film. So a camera looks at the picture 44.1 thousand times a second and describes each picture as a 16-bit binary code. So it's 16 bits describing a picture taken 44.1 thousand times a second, which was originally considered to be perfect because a mathematician decided that twice the bandwidth of what we can hear, like 20K, the maximum we can hear, most of us can't hear that, even kids can't hear it, but that was good enough to be perfectly define the analog source. It's complete nonsense for a bunch of reasons, but even if you believe the math, if you listen, it doesn't work. So then it got up to 9624, which is much, much better. And I've been challenged on tests like that. Well, I'm sending you a file, and the file, both files say 9624, but only one of them is really 9624. The other's 44.1K. You tell me which is which. And I listen and I send back that. How did you know? I can hear it. Come on. And most people can hear it if you're trained to listen.
I agree. I had long discussions with Volker Bohlmeier because I was a big streamer. I had my Einstein equipment, but I streamed. And then I drove to his showroom, and then we listened to a record. And I said, damn, I'm still not there. Damn. And he always said, Michael, you will never get there with your FLAC files. And after a few years, I gave up and went full back into vinyl because you don't.
That's right. Even today, the manufacturer of one of the finest professional audio A to D converters that you've all heard of, because it's mentioned in a lot of records, called me recently and said, you know, I've been reading you for years, and this is off the record, don't quote me, but you're right. It is still not totally transparent to the source. We're getting there. It's much better, but there are things about it that you can still hear. It's granular, but you can still hear it. At any rate, be that. So what is DSC? It's a 1-bit system. So it's 1 bit at an extremely high frequency. Extremely high frequency. And so the waveform looks more like analog because it's one bit. And then
it's discrete in a way, right? No, it's like a wave, right?
It's like, but it's still a sampled thing, but it's
still not a wave.
But it has problems, and the problems have to do with noise. Noise at the higher frequencies, a lot of noise gets created, and they use a noise shaping filter to remove the noise, and that creates its own set of problems. But all of these things have problems, whether it's analog tape or DSD or PCM, they all have problems, just like microphones all have problems. So then they came up with twice DSD. Okay, you don't think DSD is not ever? We're going to do twice DSD. Oh, you don't think that's not ever? We're going to do 4 times DSD. That's DXD. That's what they're using. And it's much, much more transparent. No thanks to the people that said 16-bit 44K was perfect. These people over 30 years have backtracked on what they claim over and over and over again, and they make us the villain and them the good guys. And now this DXD that they're using is, yes, it's much, much more transparent. And so when people say, yeah, you know, you've been saying it's not transparent, but it is. See, this proves it. This is much, much better.
And there's something, maybe it's a human condition. If you use the same you use for a CD, in my opinion, the vinyl still sounds better. But this can also be in my head. I don't know. Maybe it is.
Yeah. I don't know what you just meant, because English is not your native.
Sometimes you have the same sources on a CD and on a vinyl. I still like, in most cases, the vinyl more.
Yes. You know, Neil Young's Barn album. Did you get a copy of that? Barn?
Yes. Yeah.
So, you know, the guy that recorded that was Guy Charbonneau, who owns the Mobile facility. It's a great tape facility. That record sounds absolutely incredible. I think it's one of the best sounding Neil records ever. It's not his best record musically. It's good. And I'm going to talk about it, because I can't write until probably September 1st. And if you get that package, there's also a CD in the package, which was produced from the analog master tape as good as it could be, because Neil's involved in it. And that's that. You play that CD, it is seriously degraded from the record. It is not even close.
Right. Totally true. I don't have a very good CD player. I listen to CDs So I can't compare that in this manner. But yeah, that's what I also feel about it. Okay, Michael.
Are we done? I got to clean my room. My room is. So I just want to tell everybody that's watching that the YouTube channel for Tracking Angle is up, and there will be more videos coming up very shortly. I'm going to post. I was an expert witness in the Quincy Jones versus Michael Jackson trial. That video was up on my Previous Endeavors website. It's a really good story if you haven't watched it. And you know, so, okay, I'm not going to say what this guy on the. Anyway, so I'm learning from you, Michael, not to bitch and moan when people say nasty things about me, like
that doesn't make sense.
I'm a former chef and stand-up comic, and I'm dim-witted.
You know, Michael, I can't wait when we do our first video and just talk about new records.
Yes, yes, and about music, you know,
and about music. We will do that.
At any rate, the website is going to go.
Very much for this extremely quick comments you did. Thank you for sharing your thoughts.
The website's going to go live around September 1st, and it's going to have all 4 years of content of the Tracking Angle magazine that I think I held up on your previous video, but I'll shamelessly plug it again. All 4 years are going to be up here, and we have in perpetuity all the great Jim Marshall photos that were in this magazine. I think we'll be able to publish them online. I think there's some question about that. And I'm really looking forward to this. You know, leaving my previous endeavor was one of the smartest things I could do for myself. I'm not saying anything negative about them, but and now I'm at the Absolute Sound, where they really do appreciate me in a way that I don't think I was appreciated before. And it's like I feel much better, and I'm energized despite the fact that I'm old.
We all see that you are full of
old, man. I'm old, but I'm still good. So yeah, I'm very excited, and I appreciate you inviting me onto your channel.
Yeah, it was a pleasure once more. Again, thanks for the courage to say what you think, Michael. Yeah. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Michael, for having your channel and doing this, and you know, buying all your records and not being a paid off journalist.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.